From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it is P.I.D. Radio. Welcome. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and we're delighted to have you once again in our back bedroom.
This is the podcast
studio. Sorry. I don't know what I was saying.
Podcast 2. Podcast 1 is the next one over.
Oh, yeah. One of your many offices.
Yes.
Seriously, Derek has offices all over the place.
Yes, it is part of my plan for total domination.
Yes. Mine is kind of in the shipping office. But again, these are just bedrooms in our house.
Yes. Well, and that I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Will change.
Yeah, we'll talk about that after the break today.
Yeah.
We've got an opportunity. Lord is opening a door for us, and so we are excited to share that with you as to actually kind of creating a formal workspace. So we'll tell you about that when we get past the break today.
But first,
oh man,
do you have our app?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, it appears to be the best. No, that's really lame. Forget I said that.
Applied
Strike
knowledge.
that from the record.
Good Science says download the app. It's free. Mm-hmm. Everything we do is right there now on the app.
Get you all of our content, and I try to make sure that a notification gets sent to the app.
We don't bug you.
Yeah,
we try not to.
A push notification when something new goes up, and then just a couple of reminders throughout the week as new things are uploaded. But all of our content, P.I.D. Radio, our weekly Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship, A View from the Bunker on Sunday nights, Unraveling Revelation on Mondays. So 4 hours of content a week, plus all the archives going back to 2005, or at least the archives that we've uploaded. I'm still working through 2009.
We're working. We've discovered a secret vault of archives that we'd forgotten we even had.
A trench.
A
treasure trove. Yes. I'm glad we saved
a whistleblower for P.I.D. Radio.
Yes, unearthed all of those old MP3 files. So those are being uploaded, and we're working our way through 2009 in P.I.D. Radio, 2010 in A View from the Bunker. Mm-hmm. Some of those interviews are really relevant today. Last week I found the first interview I did with Patrick M. Wood, the author of Technocracy Rising, which explains a lot of what the World Economic Forum is trying to do now. Mm-hmm. He was just ahead of the curve. He's been warning about this for years. But technocracy is that is the worldview of the globalists at the World Economic Forum and their allies.
Because it allows them to control the world.
Yeah. Basically.
And make us feel like we're taken care of.
Right. You'll own nothing. You don't worry your pretty little head about owning a home or a car or your clothing. You just rent it all from us.
Yeah. We guarantee that we won't stab you in the back and raise the rent over and over. Not too many times.
Yeah, unless we decide you need it. Unless you're not serving the greater good.
In which case, we may have to evict you.
Mm-hmm. Because the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Yes, exactly.
Or the one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Star Trek.
Mm-hmm. Well, much going on this week. Where do we want to start? Do you want to start with the Pfizer thing? Do you want to start with the golden statue in New York?
Well, we can get to those two things first.
Okay.
First, we have to go to something else.
All right.
It is now 90 seconds.
Oh, yes.
To midnight.
Yes. Speaking of the WEF and the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists and a new group that really made its sort of coming out party.
They've been there for a while, but they've just sort of, as if, hey, we've been here all along. We've got a backstory. We're not brand new. But they have been around for a while. Uh-huh. They are called the Elders. The Elders. I'm not kidding.
Oh. You go to their website. You can find this at theelders.org, theelders.org. Big headline. It is 90 seconds to midnight. And they are taking credit for the announcement of the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists.
Yes.
Doomsday Clock.
And they're not scientists.
No. But the BAS has been announcing the Doomsday Clock for
a long time.
50 years?
Long time.
When didn't they launch that?
I want to say in the 40s.
The Doomsday Clock since 1947.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened in 47. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
A lot of things appeared in 47. Mm-hmm. And suddenly in 48, Israel was a state.
Mm-hmm. So this Doomsday Clock, if you've not heard about this, and again, this has been ongoing for so long that we kind of forget about it in the background. Yeah. Nuclear annihilation, been living with it our whole lives. Mm-hmm. We had signs in my elementary school in Chicago, those little yellow signs with the 3 triangles on it.
Oh, yes.
Fallout shelter.
Oh, yeah.
Really? The auditorium is a fallout shelter. Okay.
Hey, under my desk was a fallout shelter.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we've grown up with this. Kids, I don't know that our kids, I don't know, our daughter's 32, and I don't think she's ever thought for 1 second about the Doomsday Clock.
She didn't, but when I was growing up, and you may have done this too, we had rehearsals, we had drills.
We did too, yeah.
Just like a fire drill, you had a fallout drill. You had if a nuke were falling. And the reason I think we had them, and again, you may have had them for a similar reason, is because we were right by the Jefferson Proving Ground, which was a target.
I was growing up in Chicago, presumably the major population centers of the...
It's a huge target as well.
So, yeah, we had drills. And I started school in 67, the fall of 67. So just the last few years of the 60s. But even, if I remember correctly, even into the early 70s, we were still doing this. But, this year is the first year that I can remember the BAS announcement attracting any kind of real attention. It's sort of like, one of those things that news organizations will throw out there. Okay, we got 30 seconds to fill before the commercial break. Oh, yes, it is now 2 minutes to midnight, blah, 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 blah. 90 seconds to midnight is the closest they've ever had this number to nuclear annihilation.
Well, that's the reason they're giving, because of the Ukraine war.
Yep.
The world is closer now to all-out nuclear annihilation. And the World Health Organization is recommending that countries put aside a stockpile of medicines that we will need in case of a nuclear war.
Yeah, but they're saying, but it has nothing to do with what's happening in Ukraine. We're just be safe.
Right, but NATO is even admitting now we are at war. NATO is at war with Russia.
Russia's been saying this for some time now, and they warned that, and we'll go into this in more detail here in a minute, that the ramping up of military hardware, supplying military hardware to Ukraine, was escalating the conflict.
We're supposedly U.S. sending 75 tanks.
Which the military says, well,
we don't
have 75 extra Abrams tanks.
We have to order them.
Yeah. So the military-industrial complex is saying, oh, sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Put those on the sales books for this year. Boys, we're all going to Palm Springs for the winter.
I know.
It's
Daddy Warbucks.
Yes, that's exactly what's going on here. But the elders' press release connected to this change in the Doomsday Clock said, for the next 5 years, our focus will be on the climate crisis, nuclear weapons, and pandemics.
Yes,
basically.
The same thing as the World Economic Forum.
Right. This is just another group adding to the echo chamber of the globalist movement driven by the WEF.
You may be asking yourselves, who's in this group? These must be really important, probably scientists and things.
The elders.
No.
Yeah.
The elders were started, according to their own bio, by Richard Branson and Peter Gabriel.
Peter Gabriel?
Yes.
Sledgehammer?
Sledgehammer.
Big time?
The Peter Gabriel Trust. Richard Branson has probably another charity like a trust or something. They funded the foundation of the elders. There are 10 active elders and 5 emeriti elders.
Right. And I've got the list right here, just so you know who we're dealing with. The current chair of the elders is Mary Robinson, who was the first woman president of Ireland. The deputy chair, Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations. And Gracia Machel, who was the first education minister of Mozambique. Seems like a lovely lady. Others include Gro Harlem Brundtland, who was the first female prime minister of Norway. Elbegdorj Chakia, I had to look up how to pronounce that. Former prime minister and president of Mongolia. He led Mongolia out of the Soviet Union when that broke apart. Others include Ernesto Zedillo, former president of Mexico. Juan Manuel Santos, former president of Colombia, Nobel Peace Laureate. The emeriti include President Jimmy Carter and the former chairs of the elders. Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General. He served until 2018. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who served until 2021, and then Mary Robinson took over from him. But interestingly, when you go to their website and you look at the Who We Are page, they don't make any reference to Richard Branson or Peter Gabriel.
They don't.
I mean, Peter Gabriel, the original lead singer of Genesis. I mean, that's really awesome, right? No. They say the founder was Nelson Mandela.
Well, maybe it was the Mandela effect. Maybe he went back in time and inserted himself.
Changed the history of the group.
History. We're joking about that. We don't believe in that.
No, the Mandela effect's bogus.
No, it is bogus. But Mandela gets evoked a lot, and it's unfair to his legacy.
It is. Mandela, there's no question he was a remarkable man, but he was not perfect.
No.
He did things that were reprehensible, as have we all.
His name is being used to further a purpose that may have nothing to do with him.
Correct. And he has a status among the woke. Mm-hmm. He is sacrosanct.
Yes.
You cannot criticize Nelson Mandela, just as you cannot criticize certain others, because they've been beatified. Mm-hmm. Not officially. This is not like the Roman Catholic Church or the Eastern Orthodox Church officially declaring that this person is a saint. But the secular world has its saints in that respect as well.
In a way, we all do.
Yeah.
Not you and I don't literally worship saints, but I think everybody has a hero in the modern term of a hero.
Right.
That we look up to. Every people group, they have certain individuals that George Washington.
Right. There are certain Americans that, for patriotic Americans, you cannot criticize.
Harriet Tubman. Heroes in history. But Nelson Mandela, I don't know that he ever had anything to do with this group.
No. According to Peter Gabriel's website, which I looked at, Gabriel and Branson went to Mandela back in 2007 when they decided to found this group and asked if he would attach his name to it. And they provided the initial funding for the group. Mandela served as the founder and chair. Did he do anything? We don't know.
Oh, he actually was connected to it then.
Yeah.
Well, then I suppose they can use his name.
Sure.
It's just he didn't
found the group. This was not Mandela's vision.
He was a figurehead.
Exactly. And he was approached by Gabriel and Branson because they knew if we attach Nelson Mandela's name to it, it will carry certain heft and maybe this is me just being cynical, but I think the reason he's still being put out there as the founder rather than Peter Gabriel and Richard Branson, because you can't criticize Mandela in today's world. And so it's sort of like a supernatural shield you put around the organization.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's move away from that idea and into the name itself, the elders.
The elders, yeah. It's like the secret chiefs of Blavatsky.
Exactly. It's like something from a novel. From a Lovecraft novel.
Or from... what's I'm thinking of? Cowboy Bebop, which is an anime where you got a group, organized crime run by a group of 10 elders. Now, that's obviously not what they're trying to evoke here.
No, it isn't.
But it's got that same sort of thing. You've got these 10 wizened statesmen and women who are conveying upon the world their shared experience and wisdom.
Right, and that's the point of using that term. But it does evoke Blavatsky because she and Alice Bailey, who followed her, they preached this idea of ascended masters, elders who would advise mankind and help us to progress. The irony there is that, according to Blavatsky, and I don't know if Bailey believed this or not, but the ultimate location, the sacred mountain, was for these elders, for the ascended masters, was in or near Shambhala, or Shambhala. I don't know how it's pronounced, but Shambhala is a theoretical place. Now, there may be other, actual physical places that have taken the name, but it is a theoretical place like Mount Meru, like Mount Olympus. May have a physical location, but this is a beyond the veil group of people that lived close to, get this, Mongolia. Which is why I think that guy from Mongolia might be in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, I may be wrong, but it seemed odd, didn't it? You and I went, Mongolia.
Yeah. What, isn't that where the entrance to the hollow earth in this worldview is supposed to be? Because I thought Shambhala was inside the earth.
Well, it's a mount, but it's the underworld.
Yeah.
It's the other world, so everything there is upside down. Haven't you seen the Godzilla movies?
Yes, absolutely.
Kong versus Godzilla, rules. Exactly.
It's the vril.
Well, I'm starting to think that there may be something to that. And whether or not it's physical, I don't know. But I do believe that when you cross over into what's sometimes called the other world or the underworld, that you are in an entirely different place that may feel like you've gone to what's called in Stranger Things, the upside down.
Mm-hmm. I been exchanging a couple of emails with a fellow whose work we've followed and appreciated for a long time, Christopher Knowles.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be talking with him on Tuesday night for an upcoming episode of A View from the Bunker. He's done a presentation, and he's been teaching at his website and his Patreon page, the symbolism in our present world for the worship of the Watchers, and specifically the sinful Watchers. Need to remember that taking Daniel 4 as at face value, there are Watcher class angels who are loyal to God, but the fallen Watchers. And he shared with me a PowerPoint presentation called The Watchers, the Vril Yah, Lovecraft, and You. Mm-hmm. And he sees the parallel between what was taught by Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Edward Bulwer Lytton.
Yeah, it was a dark and stormy night.
Right, but he's the one who wrote the story of the Vril.
Mm-hmm. He didn't originate it.
He didn't originate it. No,
that idea had been around at least for a couple of 100 years, but he definitely was the first to write a novel about it, I think.
And as Christopher Knowles pointed out, the parallels between the writings of Blavatsky, Bailey, Bulwer Lytton, and Lovecraft, who drew on those sources for his fiction. And shows the parallels between the Cthulhu mythos and the underwater city of Cthulhu, which is Rilya, and the underworld called the Vrilya, or the people who live there, the Vrilya. So, and I've written about this, Josh Peck and I, in our book, The Day the Earth Stands Still, the parallels between Lovecraft and Aleister Crowley, and the Cthulhu mythos, and what was revealed to Crowley by his spirit guide, not Lamb, but Harpocrates.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So, it's bizarre, but it shouldn't surprise us as Christians if we're looking at the spirit realm and understanding that we're wrestling not against flesh and blood.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And I find it very interesting as a Christian who has studied Bible prophecy that the elders have 10 active members. Now, I don't want to impugn any of their reputations, but the number 10 represents human government. The number 10 also is used in the Bible quite a number of times, including a reference to 10 kings waiting for their kingdoms.
Yeah. We don't think these are them.
No, but there may be spirits advising them.
Right.
And we'll explain that in just a minute. But at the same time that we're getting, remind me that we want to explain the 10, and by that I mean the 9.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. If you're sitting there going, 9, 10, what? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. But at the same time that this is the elders have revealed themselves to the world, we see a statue in New York of, it's supposed to represent the ideology of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah. This is really weird. It's a golden statue about 8 feet tall sitting outside the courthouse in New York City. It's over the appellate court, First Department of the Supreme Court of the State of New York. A woman who's what appears to be at first ram's horns, which is in fact what they are. They look sort of like braids that have been braided out to look like ram's horns, but they are ram's horns.
Yeah, exactly.
And her arms and legs are not arms and legs; they are serpents. It is clear that that's what we're seeing there. The explanation for this is, now, how did I manage to do that? Close.
Well, supposedly it's to represent her advocacy for abortion rights.
Yeah. Well, in a sense, it does. I mean, it doesn't look anything like Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
But not in the way the left would have you define it.
Yeah. in the sense that, and this is how Chris and I got to exchanging these notes, because he had posted a Twitter thread analyzing the statue. It is, well, it's a statue not of Ruth Bader Ginsburg or anything representing abortion. It's really a statue of Inanna.
Yes, it is. Exactly. Inanna is a goddess that I've been writing about for a long time and speaking about, as have you. And some of our other friends are also, including Jonathan Kahn. He started to catch that Inanna is indeed the deity in charge of the world.
Spirit of the age.
The spirit of the age. Inanna is both female and male. That's why you have a female body here and the representation of ram's horns, which gives her male authority.
Right. Ewes, in the sheep world, ewes do not have horns.
They do not.
So she is displaying both male and female attributes, which is how Inanna was depicted in ancient Mesopotamia.
Right. And I think it's a shame that I didn't agree with Bader Ginsburg's policies, but I think it's a shame that she's being presented this way.
Yeah. The official explanation, according to the artist, whose name is Shazia Sikandar, she's a Pakistani origin, based in New York now, saying that the female body has a face with its hair braided into spiraling horns. The horns mimic the movement of the arms and are there as a symbol of the figure's sovereignty and its autonomy. She is a fierce woman and a form of resistance in a space that has historically been dominated by patriarchal representation.
Well, she's right about the sovereignty part.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, because going all the way back to Sumer, and even before, when you see a figure that has horns, that is a deity.
Right. And again, going all the way back to Sumer, Inanna was praised for being able to change men into women, women into men, and so on. And she is quoted in some of the hymns that have survived as saying, though I am a woman, when I'm in the tavern, I'm also an exuberant young man. The Hurrians, the Hurrian version of her, Shauska, depicted on that famous that famous series of inscriptions, carvings, where they got all the Hurrian deities, men on one side and women on the other. She's on both.
Yes. You know, the other thing is that this statue is standing on a lotus flower.
Before the installation on the courthouse. They didn't put the lotus flower on the courthouse.
It's actually been in several places.
Oh, wait. No, you're right. She is. I'm sorry. My mistake.
No, she is.
You're right.
It's the big skirt in the other location. This lotus flower in many cultures represents purity. Purity.
That's not Inanna.
No, it's not. But Inanna would like to represent herself that way, as if somehow she is the equivalent of the warrior goddess, the sex goddess, and the Virgin Mother all at the same time.
Interesting that some of the pictures are shot at an angle so that it's not obvious that her lower limbs, her legs, end in serpents.
No, but they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the poetry for Inanna talk about it, discuss her purity, and that it was only violated when she was in an Edenic setting and this creature came and took her.
Yeah, there are some myths about her.
There are some really weird stories about her. Back in the day, the television of the day were plays, ritual plays that would be done, or you would have a singer that would relay the myth or the story of a deity. And it would be during the time that you worshipped the deity. And that's how we have some of these plays. They were actually written down. And others are just in picture form. So you see what looks like a long parade. And you can kind of get the idea from it what the story is. Almost like a graphic novel in stone.
Yeah. I'm glad that these have been preserved.
Me too. And they've only recently been discovered.
Yeah. Gives us an insight into what's going on. Knowledge is increasing, as Daniel was told, would happen in the end times.
Both for good and for evil.
Right. But unless we see these things with a biblical perspective, we're not going to recognize them for what they are.
You know, you should ask ChatGPT about Inanna.
Yeah, I signed up for ChatGPT. That's this artificial intelligence that Google is really concerned will take over its business.
Yes, I think they should be concerned because you were asking some scholarly questions this morning and getting quite good scholarly, supportive responses.
Yeah, and not as woke as I expected.
No, not. In fact, one of the questions he asked was, "Who is Donald Trump?"
Yeah, and it basically went so far as to say he was a controversial figure, which is not incorrect.
Gave you the bones, the history of this is what he did here, 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 and here. Didn't really, lean to one side or the other a whole lot.
Logging into Chat GPT right now is surprisingly good responses. Tom Horn sent around a note, asked it to write a chapter on artificial intelligence from a Christian perspective. And it was pretty balanced. Here are the things that Christians would worry about and blah, blah, blah. And it was actually pretty well written. Pretty well written. Yeah. It's kind of,
we're going to be put out of business.
Yeah. And that was the thing that surprised me because I asked it some questions trying to log in now. Now it's directing me to a different page.
Oh.
So trying to do this in real time, probably not the best idea. Anyway, asked it the Nephilim, who were the Rephaim. I asked it another question, who were the Suteans?
Yes, which is very obscure.
Obscure. It's a tribe of people who lived in the Transjordan, east of the Jordan River during the biblical period. In the Bible, they show up as the sons of Sheth. They were known as the Shazu or the Shutu by the Egyptians, and it actually had a really good answer. And it pointed to scriptures that I'm only aware of the Suteans or the sons of Sheth in Numbers chapter 24. And it pointed to Deuteronomy and Jeremiah as a couple of other locations where they could be found in the Old Testament. Like, what, really? Oh, again, sort of disturbing. But it is going to be, in fact, BuzzFeed this past week announced that it's going to start using Chat GPT to create content. A lot of the reporters for BuzzFeed are going to be out of a job. Because
yes.
BuzzFeed has been hemorrhaging money for quite some time.
Oh, my.
You remember when reporters were telling coal miners in West Virginia they should learn to code?
Yeah.
The irony is harsh because now the code is putting the journalists out of business. Maybe the journalists should learn to mine coal.
Oh my goodness, that is funny. That is funny. Well, yeah, we promised you that we were also going to address the idea of the 10. The 10 kings who are waiting, 10 spirits, we believe, maybe humans who think that they're the ones who are really waiting when in fact it's spirits, and maybe watchers, because we know that after the flood, that mankind came together and tried, because they were all one language, and they tried to go back to the pre-flood world. They tried to bring those gods back. I think there was a hunger. It was better in the old days. It was the idea
golden age.
The golden age. We want to bring them back. So let's bring back Shemyaza and his bunch. They were building what they thought was going to be a portal. We call it the Tower of Babel, which means God Gate. And the Lord said, no, you're not going to do that. We're not going to go back to those pre-flood days. You're not letting him out. So he divided the people into language groups. Could have been 70 language groups, could have been more. We don't know. But for each language group, he sent down an advisor, someone who was designed to live in the heavenly realms and was sent to earth. And it may have been that these were watcher class individuals. And they're still here. Yeah.
And they've already been judged and found wanting. Psalm 82.
Yeah.
Though you are gods, all of you, sons of the Most High.
And Inanna is one of those.
Well, the 9 is a reference to a group that we first read about, at least we first read about this in the work of Peter Levenda as part of his Sinister Forces trilogy.
Right. It's actually called The 9.
Yeah. A medical doctor named Andrija Puharich, who was a contractor for the CIA.
Didn't you work with the remote viewers? He recruited,
I think that was
Uri Geller, I think.
Yeah, who was part of the 9 for a while. Yeah. He began a research laboratory in Maine called the Round Table Foundation. This was in 1948, interestingly. In December of 1952, he brought into his laboratory, and I had to look this up. I know I've written about this in The Day the Earth Stands Still, but that was back in 2017. So, time has passed since then.
Isn't 52 the year that those saucers appeared over Washington?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's correct.
The year that Michael Rennie showed up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Claudiu Barada Nicto. Yeah. And Puharich brought into his laboratory a mystic from India by the name of Dr. D.G. Vinod. D.G. No. And he began to channel the nine, or the nine principles. That's principle like a guiding, tenet, not the principals, the guys who run the schools.
Those are your
nine
pals.
Principles.
The principal pals.
Mm-hmm. And a group began meeting regularly to hear this received wisdom from the nine.
Like the elders.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting in that over time, that the group, according to Levenda's research, the group included some very, very wealthy people, members of the Forbes family, the Payne family, which is another very old money family from the American Northeast. Arthur Young, who invented the Bell helicopter. So, and there was an Astor in there as well. So some very old money as part of this group. And this channeler, Vinod, was with Puharich and this group for some months before he returned to India and dropped out of history. But the nine proclaimed themselves to be God, stating that God is nobody else than we together, the nine principles of God.
Well, 9 is an interesting number. There are 9 major deities of Egypt, the Ennead.
The Ennead. Mm-hmm.
There's also a candelabra, we'll call it the candelabrum, a lamp with 9 branches called the Chanukia. As in Hanukkah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's specifically used during Hanukkah, so if I've misspoken on that, but I'm looking at a website that's comparing the menorah, which has 7 branches, and that is, we see in the Bible many times, but there's also a 9-branched candelabrum called the Chanukia, and it has 4 on both sides,
and
each
one
side,
in the middle,
and then one in the middle.
Yeah, the Hanukkah is a Hanukkah memorial.
I don't see that
Nine-branched
in the Bible.
candelabrum lit during Hanukkah.
Yeah, I don't see that in the Bible, but the reason I looked it up is because I had remembered seeing a 9-branch, what appears to be a menorah, and it always kind of confused me. But why are there 9?
Well,
and I would say that there is a 10th who comes along, and he is actually the head of those 9. In other words, the leader.
Yes, like Satan, who has currently the kingdom of this world. Yeah.
This is a question to ask Christopher Knowles. Our friend Chris Knowles is an amazing researcher. I don't know that he's actually a Christian yet, but he seems to be leaning that direction more and more. So, Chris, if you're listening to this, and I'm misspeaking, forgive me. We love you, brother. Chris has just discovered so much. He has followed semiotics and the symbols in our commercials and our films and in just graphic novels everywhere, and trying to figure out what they actually are trying to get us to believe, how they're hurting mankind in a certain direction.
Right. He has a gift for pattern recognition.
Doesn't he, though?
Yeah. So, again, we'll be discussing that, and it'll be coming up in the next few weeks on A View from the Bunker.
But the interesting thing about the 9 is that they were sort of like the elders, -1, except that they had a leader. They had a channeler who was telling them about the 9.
Right, and it finally revealed that the leader of this group called himself Tom, and they determined, oh wait, no, that's not Tom, that's Atum, the creator god of the Egyptian Ennead, which is one of the pantheons worshipped in Egypt. We think of Egyptian religion as a monolithic thing. No, they had different pantheons at different places. This, I think, was the version of the gods that was worshipped at what was later called Heliopolis. I think.
Yes.
I think.
Well, you may
Not
be
an
right.
expert,
The Aten is the one that was worshipped at Heliopolis, I think, by Akhenaten.
Akhenaten.
Which was essentially the sun god. He believed that was the creator.
Anyway, the 9 principal gods of this particular version of Egyptian religion that's how they revealed themselves. And Uri Geller shows up into this story in 1971. So they've been going on and channeling this group since 1958. And Puharich not only he didn't bring Uri Geller into the group, he essentially discovered Uri Geller.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, just a couple of weeks ago, said the reason we had that massive ground stop here in the United States, where the Federal Aviation Administration had to ground all planes for the first time since 9/11. So for the first time in more than 20 years, a full ground stop because of a computer glitch, they said, corrupted database or something. Geller says, no, it was aliens.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that's what he says. But anyway, he was discovered in 1971 by Andrija Puharich and brought into this roundtable group. And through Geller, the 9 revealed Puharich his life's mission, which was to use Geller's talents to alert the world of an imminent mass landing of spaceships that would bring representatives of the 9. We're 50 years on, and we're still waiting for that mass landing of interstellar spaceships. Hasn't happened yet.
But we're going to talk more about these spaceships after the break, but this is going to connect to Gene Roddenberry. Explanation after this.
You have blessed us with your support during our first year in ministry. You literally make it possible for us to do what we do. And so as we prepare to head into a new year, we want to return the blessing to you. Through January, we've prepared a number of special offers at the Gilbert House store, and we're featuring the Red Wing Saga, Sharon's wonderful series of supernatural thrillers that teaches spiritual warfare through masterful storytelling with fascinating historical mysteries as the backdrop. Now, all 8 novels in the Red Wing Saga, a $160 value, can be yours for just $110, a savings of $50. You'll also find the Derek Gilbert collection, all 5 of my nonfiction books, a $100 value for just $70. Those are just 2 of the special offers available through January at our online store. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/store. And as always, we thank you for your prayers and your support.
Welcome back to P.I.D. Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. We want to remind you...
Deep Space Nine!
Yes, we're going to get into all that. If you are living in the area, that southwest Missouri, northern Arkansas, and you're close to Branson, come to a little town called Blue Eye, Missouri on Thursday, the 2nd, Groundhog Day. And you'll see us because we're going to be looking for our shadows that day.
Yes.
And we'll only have a shadow if you're there to tell us where it is.
And while we're there, we'll be talking about the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset.
And probably the elders.
And the Greater Reset.
Yeah, well, that is the one that's really coming. The Lord is going to truly reset this world. He is indeed. Well, the 9, they have a tenuous connection that Peter Levenda and others have followed to Gene Roddenberry.
Yeah, it was really strange, but Gene Roddenberry wound up as part of this group in the 70s.
Star Trek fame, if you don't recognize the name, he created Star Trek. And Deep Space Nine,
exactly. Which is not coincidental.
Which was about a space station on the edge of a portal. And God's coming through it.
Yeah, and there was a very definite supernatural theological component to this to the story arc of Deep Space Nine. Captain Sisko, played by Avery Brooks, was the prophesied savior of the Bajoran people.
Yes.
So there was definitely a theme there. But according to what we found, and Peter Levenda gets credit for the research here, Roddenberry he actually wrote a movie treatment based on what had been revealed to this roundtable group by the Nine. And it never got made, but I guess that was sort of the inspiration for Deep Space Nine. And this finally shut down. The research finally shut down, 1978. So this had been ongoing for 20 years by the time they finally concluded their research. But by the time by this time they were calling it Lab 9.
Oh, yes, yes.
The identities of Tom and the other 8 revealed. Tom was Atum. And I was right, yes. Things coming back. Researched this 5 years ago. And
we have read these books quite a number of times, but they're dense. There's so much stuff in them.
And again, you'll find all of this spelled out and summarized, really, because you can do a whole book just on this, which Peter Levenda did, essentially. But summarized.
There are 3 books.
Yeah, but I mean, just to focus on the 9, because one of the books is called The 9.
The 9, exactly.
Yeah. But this takes up just about a chapter within The Day the Earth Stands Still. Tom was Atum, the creator of the great Ennead. Those were the Egyptian gods worshipped at Heliopolis, which is near Cairo, so close to the Great Pyramids. Besides Atum, there were the children Shu and Tefnut, their children Geb and Nut, and their children Osiris, Isis, Set, Nephthys, and sometimes Horus. So Horus would make, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you include Horus, then you get your 10th. Yeah.
So you get the 10, the 10 elders.
And Andrija Puharich, the CIA contractor, CIA asset behind all of this. And again, the weird connection here.
Yeah, Heliopolis, that is Ra Atum.
The group that connected to that first meeting, the core group, which met about late June, so 6 months after the initial meeting, the core group met. Henry Jackson, Georgia Jackson, Alice Bouverie, Marcella DuPont, so you got a DuPont member there, Vonnie Beck, Arthur Young, inventor of the Bell helicopter, Ruth Young, who was a Forbes, Andrija Puharich, and Carl Betts, who played the dad on the Donna Reed show.
I know, that was such a surprise to me too, but Carl Betts gets us into Hollywood.
Yes. So you had a Hollywood connection. Alice Bouverie was an Astor.
Big old family.
Yeah. Arthur Young was the former husband of Ruth Forbes, as in the Forbes family. And let's see, Ruth's previous marriage, Ruth Forbes, had been to George Lyman Payne, whose son Michael Payne married a woman named Ruth Hyde. Michael and Ruth Payne became friends with a young couple newly arrived in the United States from Russia. And this is going to blow your mind. Lee and Marina Oswald. Yes, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Exactly.
So you've got a connection between the Ennead, Hollywood, old money in the United States, and the Kennedy assassination. Oh,
I know. You really need to read these 3 books. There is so much stuff in them. You'll stop and you'll think, okay, I've got to. I go back every few years and reread them.
Yeah, it's well worth doing. And I drew heavily on that for the book, The Day the Earth Stands Still. I wrote this section of that book. What's even more bizarre is that this Dr. G.G. Vinod, or D.G. Vinod, who led the channeling session, sat on the floor with the 9 members of the group in a circle around him, with a copper plate on his lap, prayer beads in his hands, and a small statue of Hanum, probably the Hindu monkey king god Hanuman, which was the little figurine that President Obama carried around in his pocket. Yes. So
we're not making this up.
You can't make this stuff up.
You can't make this up. Here's another thing. I'm still looking at the entry, the Wikipedia entry on Heliopolis, and it says here that the city itself, known as the City of the Sun, may have been referred to in Scripture, Hebrew Scriptures, as On.
Oh,
the priest of On.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have also seen On as representing another name for Osiris. So the priest or priestess of On, remember that was Joseph's wife. She was the priest of On's daughter, which may have meant that she was a priestess.
Could very well have been. But yeah, again, this is just so bizarre. So anyway, that was taking place in 1954, or 53 rather.
Well, you and I are going to talk about this today. We're going to be recording an upcoming program of Unraveling Revelation because we've just gotten to the Whore of Babylon. And so that takes us to Inanna.
And the statue
and because
of New York,
Inanna and the Statue of New York, and we're going to have to talk about the 10 and the whole elders thing because that is so strange.
It really is. It really is. So you get, again, everything from Puharich, who was connected to the CIA and its mind control experimentation, Hollywood, through not just Carl Betz, but when you get into the 70s, Gene Roddenberry, who was part of this group in 73 and 74, and old money and the Kennedy assassination. It's like, this is why Peter Levenda subtitled his series, Sinister Forces, a grimoire of American political witchcraft. A grimoire is like a book of spells.
Yes.
Political witchcraft.
Yeah. And he does not write this as a Christian.
No.
He writes this as an observer who, if anything, leans towards paganism. So understand that in many ways you're getting an insider view, sort of a whistleblower on what's been going on in the darker corners of the world throughout history.
Yeah.
It's what I try to write about in the Red Wing saga.
But it's so strange, these connections, even for us who view this from a Christian perspective. If you want a Christian view of this, again, the research that Peter Levenda did informed the book that Josh and I wrote on the UFO phenomenon, The Day the Earth Stands Still. But Tom Horn took this chapter and used it in Shadowland.
That's right.
Which is the book that includes, Epstein and all of that stuff going on around Epstein and Hillary Clinton and her odd friendship with Maria Abramovich and the weird, well, frankly, occultic artwork. So if you can draw on the research of somebody like a Peter Levenda, but you need to process it through a biblical lens, and that's what we've tried to do. Just because we don't share his worldview doesn't mean his research is invalid.
Oh no! In fact, we've back in the day we interviewed Peter a number of times for P.I.D. Radio, and I think you did as well.
Some of those
email back and forth to him quite a number of times. He would ask questions about our Christian faith, and we just answer honestly. He was a really interesting person to talk to.
Yeah, and very gracious to me. I mean, he posted a link to one of our interviews back in 2006 or something.
Even though we did it from a Christian worldview.
Yeah. I know. So, yeah, that is one of the strange things. I mean, looking at the headlines of this past week, we could look at some of the news headlines and the things that people are all outraged about. But we try to focus on things that are spiritually more impactful.
Right.
Things that threaten to change the entire planet. The World Economic Forum. But how much pull can they really have when everything they do is right out there in the media, even if it's the alternative media? I think there are hidden actors behind the scenes who are actually more consequential.
At the very least, there are spiritual actors behind the scenes.
Exactly.
The men behind the curtain, the spirits behind the curtain, those are the ones really driving us towards a great reset. And the Lord laughs with derision. Praise God. Thank you, Father.
Yeah. So, when Project Veritas releases a video, we can look at that and say, and now that I think about it, it's like, why even focus on that?
That's why I don't get really, it's like, meh.
Not really surprised.
Well, for one thing, the guy didn't talk like a scientist. He talked like he was a salesman.
Yes, he did. And like when he was trying to impress somebody.
Exactly.
So.
No, trust me. I've hung out with a lot of scientists, and they don't talk like that.
So there was that. A cool archaeological discovery this past week.
Yes.
Which I thought was really interesting.
There have been a lot of them.
Yeah. Couple of cuneiform tablets that were found in Iraq 30 years ago during the Gulf War. A lot of things in Iraq, sadly, and Syria that have been kept out of the hands of archaeologists over the past 20 or 30 years. Syria with its civil war that began in 2011, but the Iraq invasion in 91 that removed the strongman, Saddam Hussein, eventually. He was taken out in 2003. But he was really the only thing that was holding that country together. That is such a fractured group of tribes and religious sects that hate each other. There were more than 2 million Christians when we went in 2003, and now there's 125,000?
Iraq is a created state. They use the ancient name of Uruk, but the fact is that
Nimrod's kingdom.
The borders were drawn by Westerners.
Right. And the only time that nation's been held together is when you've got a dictator at the top who's brutal in enforcing his will upon the people. Mm-hmm. You cannot take a fractured state like that has been at war with each other since the beginning of recorded history. I mean, go back and read the Sumerian epics and the stories about, lament for the city of Ur because it was being destroyed by the Amorites and the Gutians.
Warfare has existed from the garden.
Right. And that part of the world has been, at war ever since. And because we went in and took out the strongman in 2003, it's still at war. So archaeologists really have a difficult time there. Although they are digging at Eridu again, which was remembered by the Sumerians as its first city, the location, we believe, of the Tower of Babel. Anyway, these cuneiform tablets date to about the time of Hammurabi the Great, which would be about the time of Abraham, about 1800 BC or thereabouts. And it's a lexicon showing Akkadian on one side and then the same phrases in the Amorite language on the other. And that was depicted in the story at Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper, as a precursor of Hebrew. Now, I ran this past our friend Dr. Doug Petrovich, who wrote the books Origins of the Hebrews and The World's Oldest Alphabet. That was published in 2016. He said, well, not really accurate to call Amorite the precursor of Hebrew. It's more like a second cousin. They are related Semitic languages, but Hebrew split off from Amorite earlier than the time of Abraham, which makes sense.
Or Amorites split off from Proto-Hebrew.
Or Amorites split off from Proto-Hebrew. I think
that's what Doug believes.
Yeah. Because Doug shows
Hence the oldest alphabet.
Right. That Hebrew was a written language in the time of Joseph and his sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, which Doug dates to about 1804 BC. So at the time of these tablets, assuming that everything is correctly dated, Hebrew was already being written in Egypt. So but it's still a fascinating discovery because it shows the existence of a language very, very similar to Hebrew, existing centuries before Hebrew was supposed to be a written language at all. A lot of scholars, until very recently, said, no, the oldest written Hebrew we've got is in the post-Babylonian exile. And so the discovery of the lead curse tablet at Mount Ebal dated to about 1200 BC. The Lachish milk bowl ostracon, which Doug wrote about, and I interviewed him about for A View from the Bunker, which was, he published a paper on that last year, 2022. That's dated to, the Hebrew invasion when they destroyed the city of Lachish in 1400 BC or thereabouts. This kind of pushes, and of course his book, The World's Oldest Alphabet, goes back 400 years prior to that. So
that's an old book.
Yeah.
Doug's been around for a long time.
Yes, he is.
But yeah, there have been a lot of things discovered, not to mention the fact that our friends from Trinity Southwest are still digging in Jordan.
Yes, they're on site as we record this at Tal El Hammam and looking forward to their final season. They've really got some ambitious goals this year. What really is interesting, I'm on the mailing list, the email list, and Dr. Stephen Collins, who leads the team, said that they got to the site and found that the night diggers had been out again. Those are the robbers, tomb raiders, basically. But they had uncovered
Laura Croft.
I don't know that Laura Croft is part of that crew, but people are looking to. Jordan's an impoverished country, and so whenever they see archaeologists digging someplace, they figure, hey, maybe there's some artifacts there we can sell to make a few bucks. And I guess you can't blame them for that.
Well, in their minds, this is our land.
Sure. So, and they know there are people out there willing to pay to get their hands on these artifacts. Apparently, the night diggers exposed a section of the Middle Bronze Age wall that they had not gotten to yet.
And may not have gotten to this year had it not been for the robbers. So thank you, robbers.
Right. They said it actually has given them their best look at the wall so far, and they're very thankful for that.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So God kind of using them to expose more truth. I hope this year they can find the archives. If there were any archives that had been buried or kept at the temple, or not the temple, but the palace, that they were preserved when the city was destroyed and everything kind of fell in on top of wherever they were keeping their records of, who was paying tithes to the palace.
Yeah, because that would really, really help, especially because it would help to prove the connections between that area of what we probably refer to now as Jordan. It wasn't Jordan back then. But also to the connections to Egypt and to Greece, to
Crete.
Crete, yes.
The Minoans.
The Minoans, exactly. Because it looks like, based on pottery, that there was trade going back and forth.
Absolutely. And one of the other things they're working on, really look forward to seeing the results of this. They found 2 sets of remains, and in scholarly parlance, they were disarticulated, meaning they were blown apart, which the result of this airburst, Tunguska-class explosion in the air. They sent them off for DNA testing. So we're waiting for those results.
I know. And there are a few other things that they've told us. Again, they've not published it yet, so we can't say anything. But they've got a lot of evidence that really points to the conclusion that is Sodom. Total left turn.
Yes.
As we are prone to do. Follow a bunny trail or whatever, but this is a left turn. Of course, it is the year of the rabbit. So, did you know that there have been Mothman sightings in Illinois?
I did not. Where?
In the, this is from the Rockford news site.
Okay.
This was in this morning's news. It starts out, all right, folks, buckle up, because we've got a wild one for you. I love that. It's, I think, near Chicago. Yes.
I'm looking at the website.
Quote, I had heard about the Chicago Mothman, was wondering if this may have been it, but it didn't resemble anything. It was described as a large creature about 4 feet tall with red eyes, and the eyewitness says he was genuinely freaked out. Genuinely freaked out. He wasn't trying to make this up, because other people are thinking, yeah. But something was seen. Now, what was it? Don't know, because there are some creatures that will reflect red eyes at night. Not all of them, but some. And this connects, strangely enough, possibly, with some of the UFO sightings in Chicago. And there have been a lot, including the major one at the airport.
Yeah, that was back in 2006. I remember, because I interviewed the national director for... what was it, New Fork?
Yeah, you were at the radio station.
Yeah, this was on the Eagle in Columbia, Missouri, and or was the head of MUFON?
Oh yes, I think it may have been.
Anyway, I'd have to go back. I've still got the archived audio from that, but this news sighting was at a self-storage facility in Evanston, which is north of Chicago. So, not geographically speaking, not in the same neighborhood as O'Hare Airport, but not really that far away.
It doesn't have to be that far away. The fact is that, and we have a wonderful friend who has a great book called They Only Come Out at Night, Vicki Joy Anderson, who gets into the idea of interacting unwillingly with the spirit realm. There are some in this world who want to see spirits, who want to see ghosts, what they call ghosts, or they want to interact with, the other side. We're not supposed to do that. The Lord, He warns us not to do that. That's what they were trying to do at Babel. They were trying to open a portal. But sometimes the other side comes over against our will. And I think some of these quote-unquote Mothman sightings, maybe even Bigfoot, Dogman, there are a lot of cryptids out there that are being seen all over the world.
This one described as... well, let's see. It was hiding under a dumpster. I'm about 100 feet away or so from it, and I see something sticking out of it, the dumpster, making a clicking sound. I say, hello, who's that? I immediately regret yelling this out. Something big squeezes out from underneath the dumpster. It looks like a pile of fleshy tissue with spike-like protrusions. Stands 4 feet tall, but then it extends up to over 6 feet. Looks like a humanoid spider or other insect, but with white flesh.
That's creepy.
Doesn't have an exoskeleton, just smooth white flesh. The head is weird, kind of insect-like with no mouth that I could see. Its eyes were human-like and it had a reddish glow. It had long slits along the side of its head. It stood there clicking and watching me. I could sense that it didn't want me there. Well,
that's really creepy.
Yeah.
Sounds like something out of The Thing. Remember The Thing, how it would take on in the newer version, not the old version.
Mm-hmm.
The original version, it would just look like another human.
Right.
But in the John Carpenter's version, it morphed into whatever it had recently been involved with, consumed, and therefore you had all of these bits of people all over it, plus weird things, like the head that branched,
little legs and started running
legs
around the floor. Yeah. So according to this story, which is at phantomsandmonsters.com, if you want to look it up, it happened in the spring of 2020. But
very strange. Well, then that gets into an actual animal that doesn't belong in Missouri.
Yeah, weird story from about 60, 70 miles east of us in southern Missouri, Ava, Missouri area. Missouri farmer there saw this weird-looking cat.
Had seen this crazy-looking cat for 6 months.
Yeah.
Says that first time he spotted the cat, it was just a brief glimpse, but it looked like it was just a newborn kitten, or relatively small. It kept growing, and he kept seeing it, and finally he was able to trap it. Turns out that it is a wild cat that belongs in the African Sahara.
It's called, what is it?
Serval.
Serval. They run about 30 pounds, which is pretty big for a house cat.
It may even be more than that, because they think the cat is 30 pounds now, and they think is 6 months old. So it may get bigger than that. But this is a big cat, does not look like your average house cat, and it is not a pet. It is a predator.
No. Common questions at Google. People ask, do African servals make good pets? Answer, no, they do not. They will chew up your furniture and mark it, and that is
your
gross.
Pets.
Yeah. They do max out at about 25 to 30 pounds, males.
Okay,
So,
well, this must be full grown then.
but still
It's a wild
larger
cat.
than a house cat.
Yeah.
And it is wild. You do not mess with the African serval.
And Missouri does have wildcats. I told Derek, and the story gets into the sanctuary that's down in Arkansas that's taken this cat. And apparently they receive quite a number of species that have no business being in Missouri or Arkansas.
Right. Species that come from sub-Saharan Africa are not designed to survive Ozark winters.
No, they are not. I've told this story before. A few years ago, shortly after we'd moved here, in fact, it was the year that we had all of these cats dumped in our yard. We've had a number of animals dumped here. That's when you leave in the country. That's what happens. But it was a mother cat and, I don't know, like 7 kittens. And we ended up rehoming them. But while there were at least 2 kittens left on the deck. And I heard them screaming in the middle of the night, meowing really loudly, like something was going on. I got up and looked out and we had a light on our deck always. And so the kittens were up on the deck railing, and there was this very large, easily could have been 30 or 40 pound, black cat, totally black, with a very thick, like a 2-inch thick diameter tail that just went straight out. And it was looking at these kittens like they were lunch. And all I could think of is, I've got to save the kittens. Derek and I, we've often said that we're not big cat people, but we have taken care of a lot of cats in our lifetimes. Derek's allergic to cats, so we don't have them in the house. And when Sam was here, he wouldn't have had them in the house.
No.
But these kittens, they were terrified. So we have a slider that goes out onto the deck. So there was a big stick on the one side to keep it from coming in while it was locked or moving. So I took that big stick out, opened the slider door a couple of inches to let the stick out, and then banged it for all I was worth on the deck behind this big cat. And it jumped off the deck. It just fled. And I'm so glad it did. But then I saw it a couple of more times after that, and then haven't seen it since.
No. There are reports of wildcats, mountain lions
Yes.
in this area. Not often, but we've heard at night not recently, but a couple of years ago, I remember hearing it. When the weather's nice, we leave our windows open.
Mm-hmm. Even in the winter, the windows are open.
We leave our windows open until it gets down below freezing, usually in the bedroom. And we've heard what sounded like a very strange, or I thought was
like
a strange bird.
Screaming.
Like a woman screaming, yeah. So when the story came out last year that a mountain lion had been spotted in Branson West, which is not far from here, I went to YouTube. Okay, what does a mountain lion sound like? It's like, oh, that's what we were hearing that I thought was a bird.
Yeah, no, it's a mountain lion.
Yeah. So they're here in the Ozarks, and there have been sightings of black bear. Not many, but again, we're living in an area where wildlife still has a decent fighting chance against encroaching humanity. There are a lot of places here in the Ozarks and, places like in the Rockies and the Appalachians where humans just can't build. So
no, that's true.
The wildlife still has a fighting chance.
It does. A lot of the area around us just really isn't suitable for habitation, not for a house. It's difficult. You have to put them on stilts because it's such a slope. But we're going to close this out with a black bear story.
Oh, we are?
The black bear cub that took all the selfies. Yeah. It was like 400 selfies at a trail cam. It is the best little story. This bear cub that it was fascinated by this trail cam, and the trail cam would snap a picture anytime there was motion.
Yeah. Where was that? I know I saved that because you sent me that story, and I got to use that on Monday.
It was one of the many kickers, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, it very cute because some of the pictures, this was reported by the Daily Mail in the UK.
Which is a great site. You can really get some interesting stories there, but you can also get some great reporting there. They were reporting on the Hunter Biden story when it was dead over here.
Right.
Nobody was touching it.
New York Post had posted it, had reported it, and of course they got kicked off social media, and then the Daily Mail ran with it, and of course everybody over here ignored. But the black bear selfie story is pretty funny. It's almost as though it knew that it would go viral, and it pretty much has.
Found it. Rangers discover 400 bear selfies taken on park camera. They are the best pictures. These are the best pictures.
Yeah, the one returning has got his tongue sticking out. It's like, I
know.
Okay, I saw Kim Kardashian do this.
Okay, now does this make my chin look thinner? I mean, how about this?
Hilarity ensues.
The world is interesting.
We've got some new specials coming up at our store during February and March, so watch for those. Those will be launching very soon.
Want to remind you that in March we are heading to Israel. If you've not already signed up for that, that window is closing. Mm-hmm. So go to gilberthouse.org/travel. And if you are interested in going, you can still sign up, but those seats are going fast. Mm-hmm. But we're going to be leaving on the 14th, I think, of March, Derek and I. We're going there a few days early, and we're going to record some video, just us and an archaeologist. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be some great stuff for the next sort of search for the fill in the blank. What are we looking for this time?
Search for the travelers.
Travelers, that's right. Search for the bathrooms.
And then come October, we're working out details.
Now, let me finish because the store is going to be closed. That's what I'm talking about in March.
Yes, important.
So from about March 13th through early April, we'll put the dates at the store, gilberthouse.org. org/store. We'll put the dates there. So if you order something during that time period, it will not get shipped out till Derek and I get back because we're the only ones running the store.
True.
We're it.
Yeah. So God bless you if you order during that time period. But from about March 12th, I would say, because we'll be preparing to leave, through probably April 4th, nothing's going to ship. So there'll be about a 3-week window there where we just won't be able to ship anything because we just won't be here. So
no, we won't. And thank you to so many of you. We've sent out over 500 orders.
It is truly humbling, and we
really
truly appreciate your support. Mentioned that, and we'll talk about Turkey in just a moment here, but well, let me do that. Let me get to the other thing that I wanted to mention that I teased at the beginning of the program. We're working with a travel company. We had talked about this last year, Doug Hershey and his travel company, Ezra Adventures, about going to Turkey in the fall. We've got potential dates now. We've got a proposed schedule. We're talking about that now with the 2 archaeologists that we want to go with us. Mm-hmm. This will be a little more expensive than the Israel tour, but
it's 2 weeks.
It's 2 weeks, and there are 3 internal flights inside Turkey. When you get to Turkey at Istanbul, you got to fly to Ankara, then you got to fly to the eastern part of the country, then you fly to. So that's 1, 2, and
we leave from Istanbul. So.
Yeah, and the third flight goes to I think the vicinity of Ephesus,
right,
for the Churches of Revelation. So there's a little more cost there, but some of these hotels are amazing, and the sites on this tour are incredible. We'll spend 4 nights in a hotel in a cave in Cappadocia.
Mm-hmm. We're going to go to some museums. We're going to Göbekli Tepe. We're going to the Churches of Revelation, which is where most people go when they go to Turkey. Most Christian groups, when they go to Turkey, that's where they go. And maybe they go to Istanbul. We're going to a lot of archaeological sites. Right. We're going to Nimrut.
Mount
Who
Nimrut?
Goes there?
Not many, especially if you're trying to do that in the same tour as the Churches of Revelation.
I know.
And that's one of the things the tour company said, is that they were really enthused about the sites in eastern Turkey that we put on the list, like Mount Nemrut, Malatya, which is the farthest, the northernmost outpost, if I remember correctly, the northernmost outpost of the kingdom of Nimrod, Uruk.
So if you love archaeology.
Yeah, Sanliurfa, Çatalhöyük, and of course Göbekli Tepe. And that's where Dr. Judd Burton and Dr. Aaron Judkins come in, because they've got a lot of research on this. We've talked to both of them about it. I interviewed Aaron for A View from the Bunker about his book, The Guardians of Göbekli, but they're going to combine their research into a larger book sometime this year. And so having them on the tour where they can actually teach on site at Göbekli Tepe and at the museum in Sanliurfa that's got the artifacts will be just amazing. So keep an eye out for that, because we hope to finalize those details and make the official announcement very, very soon. Now, the other thing about moving our offices out of the house.
Oh, yes, This is exciting.
Every room in our house, pretty much, well, except for the kitchen, living room, and our bedroom, but every other room is or has been used for what we do. This is in the back bedroom. View from the bunker's in the bedroom just to the east of here, and the other bedroom is the shipping office, and then other bedroom.
In other words, we don't have any spare bedrooms. If you come to visit us, you have to sleep on a couch.
Right.
We would rather have a house that is open for family and other people who want to come and stay for a while. That actually has a guest room and maybe an office for us. But the shipping office, we want to go to this new location. We have a barn that is just being used. And when I say barn, it's a big metal building.
Right.
They're sometimes called pole barns, metal shops. But it's a big 30 by 40 barn that the Lord gave us on this property, came with it, and we're using it for storage.
Yeah. Well, it was incredible, because we moved from a little subdivision home in a town in southern Illinois, which was not one of the more expensive places to live in southern Illinois, or in the whole state, I should say. But the Ozarks at the time was much, much less expensive. Things have really changed here in the last 8 years. Real estate has really spiked. But this property came with some land. It's about 10 acres. But that 1,200 square foot building with a concrete slab already under it. I mean, that's the majority of the expense. I'm amazed.
I know. So we've gotten all of the bids to take us to what we're calling phase 1 of the barn. And it may be the only phase of the barn. We don't know.
Right.
But we have been praying about this for years. Lord, if you want us to finish out the barn for your ministry, then give us the money. And we got the money last year. We would like to have a little more than that, but we're not expecting it. But if the Lord leads you to help out with build the barn, build barn better.
That's it. Build barn better. That's
so
it.
If you want to help out with a Gilbert house, build barn better.
I love it.
Then you can. Is there a link, a specific link that they can go to help? Because we go through Stripe and PayPal, or you can send us a check.
There's a page at the website, gilberthouse.org/donate. You'll find the link in the top menu bar at the website, gilberthouse.org/donate. Also, PIDradio.com/donate. It takes you to the same page.
Should we have one that's /donuts? I would love it.
We'd have to ship donuts, though. No,
that's true.
Yeah.
Or they could ship donuts to us.
Well, no. We work too hard to get that
I know. I really don't want to get. In fact, there's a treadmill right to my right. I need to be over there working on it.
Yeah. Build barn better.
Build barn better. Yeah.
So it's going to be very simple. We just need to insulate it there's already power out there, but we need to run outlets further around the barn. We need to run a separate circuit for the HVAC, which will be one of those
to replace the windows that
mini
are in
split unit. Yeah, the 2 windows that are in the barn right now are just storm windows. They're not real windows, so
and
those
seal
will be
the
replaced.
concrete floor.
Yeah, so all of that, and we're just going to leave it as one big room. So we can just set up one corner. Okay, that's where Unraveling Revelation will go.
Over there's the coffee bar.
Yes, the coffee bar. Here's the podcast studio, shipping office, and book storage. So the roof is tight. It needs to be there are a couple of holes in the walls that need to be fixed.
But those are really minor fixes.
Compared to the cost of building a building or buying a building.
Oh my gosh.
This will be so much more cost effective. And if we leave it as an open building that's been insulated and has HVAC in it, then when the time comes for us to resell this property, God knows when, whenever he decides, if we ever do, someone coming in won't look at it and say, that's a great building, except now we got to tear out all those interior walls. So we're not putting interior walls in it. We'll just leave it as one big open space. But if you're so led to help, PIDradio.com/donate, gilberthouse.org/donate, and we thank you. Your support has been...
We do. We've been so humbled by your generosity with us.
This first year in ministry,
Full-time
stepping out full-time, rather than... And we're still partnering with Skywatch TV.
Absolutely.
I still do the daily news updates there, and
we were just over there.
Yeah, we go there when they have the recording sessions to show our support for the work and the mission at Skywatch TV. But with Tom Horn's blessing, this first year of Gilbert House Ministries has just been amazing. And so each day when we get up, we know that because of your support, we are inspired and motivated to do the best we can with each day in terms of research, writing, communicating, and sharing the hope that we have in Jesus Christ.
Amen to that.
And that's what this is all about.
So thank you. I think that's probably it for the day.
On this week's View from the Bunker, I have gone back and repurposed, as we were speaking about Sodom earlier and Tal el-Hammam and the research at Trinity Southwest University. The director of scientific analysis for the dig at Tal el-Hammam, Dr. Philip Sylvia, who is on site in Jordan as we speak, along with Dr. Stephen Collins and Dr. Gary Byers and the other team members that we met there. Larissa Lesko, who's Dr. Collins' brain as far as
absolutely his
organizer.
Brain. Yes.
Yeah. And according to their email list yesterday, she uncovered a new like a jar.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
So she was looking very proud. We're sorry that this is going to be the last year. I was really hoping if they did one more year that we could go out there and volunteer next year.
I know we talked about it, but apparently that isn't going to work out.
Jordan is going to turn it into a tourist site, which is great.
Which is good.
Maybe
we'll get to
we can
visit
go there
it
next year. Anyway, I took the interview recorded with Dr. Sylvia for via Skype last year and pieced it together into one interview. So he shares just an overview of the scientific evidence for Tal el-Hammam being Sodom, but he also talks about that strange discovery that he made there where a building as part of the temple precinct, so possibly a priest's quarters or something, where they wanted to make sure that it was oriented toward the rising sun on the spring, on the equinoxes, how it changed its orientation over time. Now, Tal el-Hammam, Sodom, was occupied for thousands of years, from about 4600 BC down to the time it was destroyed. So about 3,000 years. And it would change direction, like 5 degrees this way, 6 degrees this way, because the orbital rotation of the Earth, the orbital axis of the Earth, shifted over time. That's his theory.
Changing where the sun rose on that day. Rose or set. Yeah.
So that's part of that interview. So that'll be released Sunday night, 7 p.m. at vftb.net and at our YouTube channel. But better yet, it'll be released at our app. Get the app so you don't have to go anywhere else.
Get the app.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for listening.
Yes. Until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. Bye-bye, everybody.
P.I.D. Radio is an outreach of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, PIDradio.com, Twitter @PIDradio, or by downloading our free app, PIDradio.com/app or gilberthouse.org/app. Join us each week for our Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship.